In a valley where the morning fog held whispered alphabets, a lone otter watched the river braid its way through stones. The water carried soft bells of laughter from distant shores, but the otter heard something else, a murmur that sounded like a question the river asked every day. The question arrived without a shout, curling around reeds and slipping under the log where the otter slept. It asked not for speed, not for strength, but for a truth the river had learned long before. The otter wanted to know what it meant to move forward when the current pulled you toward the cold, dark pool beneath. The otter's name is not spoken here, for names are just rain on a lake's surface. It lived by the simple law of the river. Stay close to what keeps you alive and learn what moves you. Each morning, it glided through the shallow bends, practicing a rhythm of breath and push, of listening to the water's memory. Yet inside, a tug of doubt pressed harder than the water against its fur. It had learned to snatch fish with swift paws and to dive with a fearless heart. But the river's question kept returning, heavier each time. What is the purpose of the swift stroke when the stream bends toward unseen depths? One day, a storm gathered its courage in the clouds and came to visit the valley. The river rose in a quiet roar, lifting pebbles and weaving them into new songs. The otter watched as the flood carried a branch, then a log, then a driftwood heart that spun like a small, stubborn planet. It seemed that the river itself was collecting answers in its own way, shaping them with flood and pause. When the water finally settled, the otter found the driftwood heart resting against the bank, smooth and worn, with a hollow where a small creature could lie and listen. The otter crawled onto it and heard the river's memory speaking in a softer voice, as if the current were telling a bedtime story to those who would listen. From the driftwood heart, the otter learned to listen not just to the water, but to the silence that comes between the sounds, the stillness where the river rests its question long enough for a single breath to become a decision. It discovered that moving forward did not always mean pushing through the strongest current. Sometimes it meant choosing a path where the water's edge lifted higher, where the world opened a space for a new kind of movement. The otter began to test little changes, a wider arc around a rock, a pause before the next dive, a turn toward a bend where the air felt warmer. Each small choice was a stitch in a larger fabric, the fabric of being true to the pull that guides you without breaking you. As seasons turned, the valley offered a new obstacle. A fallen tree stretched across part of the river, forcing every creature to choose a slower line or a braver crossing. The otter stood on the water's edge, nose level with the tree, listening to the wind map the air. The current pressed, as if the river itself wanted to see whether the otter would surrender or improvise. The otter slipped beneath the surface, skimmed along the trunk's underside, and found a narrow seam where the river's voice grew softer, almost a whisper. It climbed the slick bark with careful pause, not rushing, not resisting, and reached the other side where the air felt sun-warmed and the water calmer. On the far bank, the otter found a family of young fish trapped behind a shallow bend, paused by the tree's shadow. It did not attack. It did not boast. It offered what it had learned: patience, timing, the keen eye that sees what the river's talk hides. With a few careful moves, the otter redirected the current's flow, easing the path for the fish to swim away toward safer waters. The fish slid into the stream without fear, and the otter felt the truth settle in like a pebble finding its place in a quiet lake. Movement is not only the act of going forward, it is the art of choosing the right moment to be still. Night fell with a cool blue breath, and the valley held its breath with it. The otter rested on the driftwood heart again, listening to the river tell a final, soft lesson. The river did not demand anything of the otter. It simply reminded that every bend in the water's path was a choice, every pause a possibility. The otter understood that progress could wear many faces. Sometimes a leap, sometimes a hinge, sometimes a patient drift toward what matters most at that moment. The river, calm now, kept its distance from the bank, letting the otter hear its own inner whisper, the whisper that had grown louder with each choice, each quiet risk. In the morning light, the otter woke to a valley made anew by quiet courage. It no longer chased the certainty of perfect speed or the guarantee of safety. It moved with the river, not against it. It listened to the water and the space between sounds, It learned the balance of action and patience. The valley sighed in approval, not with praise, but with the soft acknowledgement that life here moves forward through small, honest decisions that fit the current, shaping a path that is both true and gentle. The last image lingers like a memory of wind over leaves. A single otter, a driftwood heart, and a river that never stops asking questions in a language older than the hills. And in that language, the otter learns to listen, not for answers, but for the right moment to move. An ending hums in the air, soft as dusk settling over a valley, a reminder that to flow well is to learn to ask and answer in the quiet of your own choosing.